First and foremost, when a transition is about to occur, there is already a preparation in the minds of everybody that will be affected.
Right.
But you have a responsibility to manage the expectation.
Hmm.
And there is a tool in management consulting, I can't remember the name now, that talks about power and influence of the people in our lives. There
Yeah.
are two factors always at play.
Yeah.
There is a factor of people who are powerful in our lives and people who are influential in our lives.
It's on the
And
leadership grid.
thank you.
Yeah.
So there's usually a matrix where some are highly powerful but low influence.
Yeah.
A typical example, a parent in a person's life of an adult, they are not necessarily powerful again, but they are influential.
Right.
When you were a minor, they were powerful and may or may not be influential depending on their relationship with you.
Right.
So parents of minors are currently enjoying power, but if they don't have a relationship with the minor, their influence is low.
Right.
And the minor becomes an adult and the power diminishes.
Yeah.
The only thing left for a parent is the influence,
Right.
which is why an adult grows and says, I don't know why my parents are calling me and asking me why I'm not calling them. Why should I call you? When I was young, you were not there.
Hmm.
It's because when I was young, you had the power over me, but you didn't have influence.
Hmm.
Now I've become an adult, you don't have the power, neither do you have the influence.
Right.
So it is for the person making the transition to ask themselves, each person on my list of concerns, how powerful and how influential are these people?
Right.
Because if I can manage them depending on where they fall in the matrix, the transition will be easier. Let me
Hmm.
give you my personal experience. When I was leaving my job took effect, my resignation took effect 1st of July 2011 from the then Value Card, which is still a very profitable business till today. They have scaled.
Yeah.
So when I was about to resign, I had intimated my ex-wife the previous October that I intended to put in a resignation. I felt like this was the time to move. And she was like, we don't have anything, we don't have a house, we don't have a car, we don't have anything, we can't just live like that. And I said, I have this conviction that this is the time to move. So it took a while. Then I traveled to meet my dad in Lokoja. Remember, I had a list of critical people I was going to talk to. So first was my ex-wife. Second person was my dad. So I traveled to see my dad and I told him, so I plan to leave my job. And my dad was asking me questions around okay, when you leave your job, then what? And he just
Hmm.
needed to understand, how are you going to weather the storm? And I don't know for what reasons he became convinced. So my dad asked me to kneel down and said, where people think it is hard and regret leaving their job, it will never be your story. So he
Wow.
put his hand on my head and prayed for me and said he was supporting that move and asked that and prayed that I wouldn't have a regret. What I've just explained is managing the critical people in the transition process.
Yeah.
You cannot just sit back and say, I don't give a damn about anybody, it's my
No.
decision.
No.
No,
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
are critical people. My kids then were Sharon, my first child, was just 2 years old. Her kid sister wasn't even born by that time.
Okay.
So imagine if it was around now. There are transitions I'm making now. I involve my children.
Yeah. You have to have a conversation with
Do you
them.
get? So even at some point, your children become critical factors in the transition. Your
Right.
sponsors at some point become critical factors in your transition. Do you get? So you have to sit down and ask yourself, who are the people that would express concern?
Okay.
What role do they play in my life?
Right.
What level of honor?
Mm-hmm.
Honor is the word. What level
Mm-hmm.
of honor must I offer them or confer on them? Because that honor is the wing you will fly with in the transition.
Right. Right. Oh my
And it's
goodness.
very,
So much to unpack here. So much to
so,
unpack.
Prof, one more thing before you continue. You remember that when God wanted to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, he conferred with Abraham.
Right.
God, though,
Right.
that was transitional.
Yes.
And he still had to say, who be the person why if we do this gist with? You get waiting they bother me. That country, I need to clear them. What do you think? And
Yeah.
Abraham was even Abraham was even negotiating. If you have 5 people that believe, would you do it? He said no.
Yeah.
If you have
Yeah.
10 people,
Yeah.
so that's the thing. So I'm saying this because if God could negotiate transitions, man should understand that there is a place of honor in the cycle of transitions, and it,
Thank
it really matters.
Thank you. I needed to bring that out because sometimes, people go like, yeah, it's my life. I'm just going to leave it. But when there are people involved, you can't just stand up and just,
It can't.
move,
It can't.
Some of the things that you said, from everything that you've said, I see that you had a very strong support system. Your dad prayed with you. Even at the time, I would say that your wife at the time, it would have, sometimes this fear comes from a place of love.
Yes. Oh,
you know
definitely.
it comes from
Definitely.
a place of love. I remember also
Definitely.
moving. My parents had concerns, even though, like you said, they didn't have any influence. My husband was the biggest factor in my
Yes.
moving to the US, but I needed, because I'm very close to my parents, I needed them to understand why this move was important. And
Yeah.
so it's important that we don't give people the power that they don't have. They may have influence, but let's
Yes.
not give them power when it is just the fact that it's just influence that they
Yes.
they have in
Yes.
our lives.
Very valid.
Um,
Valid.
Coach, I promised that this wasn't going to be very long, so I'm just going to ask you strategies,
Hmm.
tips for a successful transitioning system. And I'm talking about every kind of system, whether you're
Yes.
transitioning from being single to being married, from
Yes.
moving from paid employment to entrepreneurship, from
Yes.
moving from a career to another career, moving
Yes.
from a field to another field, or if you're like me, just being from the background and hosting a live YouTube channel. What are some of the strategies and tips that you can share?
Fantastic. Thank you for asking. First, we need to know that some transitioning can be immediate, short term, or can be long term. But all transitions have long term consequences. All transitions, whether they're immediate or long term. And
Right.
so the first strategy you must employ in transitioning is you need to do future pacing, what we call future pacing.
Mm.
10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, this transition that I'm so considering or contemplating or I found myself, because like
Mhm.
we said, some can happen unplanned. 25 years from now, all things being equal, what would I have wanted looking
Mm.
back?
Mm.
That's a
Mm.
very tough question. It's not easy to answer the question, but it's
Yes.
better to dwell on the question until you have an answer.
Wow.
Because if you future pace and the answer says 25 years from now, if I'm able to pass through the whatever the obstacles are now and get this thing done, I will thank myself for it. That becomes the why.
The why for the transition, very
Yes, that
important.
becomes the overaching purpose. Because if you don't have that overaching purpose, every advice will say, okay, that's true. Maybe I don't need to do it. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, we do it. I will do it. Somebody will now say, you're wasting your time. Say, yes, I think I'm wasting my time. Somebody else will say, are you mad? You say, yes, I think I'm mad. Because every advice suddenly is making sense because you don't have an overaching purpose for it. So you have to bite that bullet first of asking
Hmm.
yourself, in the long run, this transition, will it favor me? Is it something I want? That's something
Hmm.
I keep telling. So, for example, I say, what you really want is what we will do. We
Hmm.
have to come to that point where what you really want is what matters most to you, because
Yeah.
that's where all your resourcefulness comes in. Your heart
Yes.
is open to resources when you have chosen something you really want.
Hmm.
First step in the strategy is future pacing.
Hmm.
Long term, will this thing matter to me? If it will
Hmm.
matter to me, I will do it. If it will
Hmm.
not matter to me, then I can now contemplate, do I want to do it, or can I just
Mhm.
step aside and find
Mhm.
something else? So that's number one. Number two is to ask yourself, what are the critical structure I
Hmm.
need for this transition? Because
Hmm.
support system is non is it cannot be overemphasized.
Yeah.
Forget all these self-motivated, self-hype, something, something. Yeah. When he hits you, you go know say support system matter. So you
Yeah.
need to ask yourself, what's the structure I need? Because when the going gets tough, you
Mm.
need that structure.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
need to identify the environment you need to put yourself, the people you need to put yourself with, the belief systems you need to adopt, you
Mm.
know, the thought processes you need to adopt, the resources you need to consume. Because sometimes
Mm.
you may need to consume resources. When I was leaving my job, I read books. I read
Mm.
books by Miles Monroe, Paulo Coelho, coaching books. I just needed to be in that zone where I'm like, I'm fired up. Some
Mm.
people say, oh, motivation is this one. Motivation is a powerful instrument for transition.
Yes. Yes,
And
absolutely.
you have to intentionally put yourself in environments with people and resources that keep your fire burning.
Right. Right.
So that is a very key component in the strategy for transition. Then
Mm.
number three strategy is self, how do I put this? Self-censoring. There's a way
Mm.
you must censor yourself in transition. And what do I mean? Sometimes you're over ambitious in transition. You're not listening to anybody because that's all you want to do.
Mm.
And then sometimes you're overcritical in transition. So that censoring of yourself is key for balance.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to ask yourself, okay, I want this, but maybe I should take it in stages or in phases or in bites, in bits. Those self-talk,
Yeah.
caution, reasoning, balance, moderation is very helpful in transition because
Yeah.
in transition, you will be spending more than you need to spend if you're not careful.
Mm.
In transition, you'll be devoting more time doing things you don't need to do
Mm.
because you're like all out. I must get this thing done. I have to do it. I
Yeah.
believe in it. I believe in it. And even when somebody's giving you constructive feedback, you feel like they're an enemy.
Mm.
So self-censoring is very key. And then
Wow.
the next strategy is design the micro steps. step
Mm.
step by step. The big picture may be something ambitious, but the daily steps must be something that are easy to achieve,
Wow.
which is
Thank
where we talk about low hanging fruits.
Yeah.
It's very key because it's when you achieve those micro things, you're like, okay, it seems this thing is making sense. So this is very, very key. But I'll end up by saying the most important factor is that you must sharpen your discerning capacity. You must be discerning.
Mm.
You must
Mm.
be discerning
Mm.
because when you are ready to move, the enemy is ready to move.
Yeah. Yeah.
That one is true. Say we normally we forget that Satan is the oldest creature on earth in this life.
Thank
Lucifer is the oldest creature in God's creation right now. So
Yeah.
Lucifer does not need you to read the Bible to know you. He knows you. Do you
Mm.
realize that Lucifer knows your ancestry to the 25th generation?
Mm. Wow.
Nobody on earth today that Satan does not know by DNA. Forget.
Wow. Coach, just you said
Yes.
strategies for transition in very like we can have a master class on these strategies, but I know that right now we, you talked about future pacing, you talked about critical structure, system of support. You talked
Yes.
about self-censoring and
Yes.
balancing. And this is where, like you talked, when you said self-censoring, it's also
Yes.
good to have people that you trust. And for me,
Yes.
you have been that kind of person because I'm also a dreamer. I believe I can take the world. You have helped me sometimes to say, calm down, let's take it in steps, right? So it's important while you're self-censoring to have people who are there to also help you check so that
Yes.
you're not going overboard. Then you talked about designing the micro steps, right? So
Yes.
for me, I remember that was important. I know I wanted to be a professor, but we had to do it baby step, masters first, then the doctoral program, right? You don't just jump into it, right? And you talked about discerning. We are both prayerful people, and I think that's also where it helps. Most of our brainstorming sessions, after we finish brainstorming of how we're going to change the whole ecosystem of the world, we still come to say we We pray about this thing. We know
Yes.
if hard work was just the answer, some people will be billionaires. But we've
By
seen
far.
have put in the work and it still doesn't work, which is why we know the place of prayer is really important. I will
Yes.
ask you a final question, but please, if you have questions or you have things you want Coach Sam to answer, we're going into the question and answer part now. Please, I want you to put it in the chat room. Coach Sam,
Yes, boss.
is there any transitioning we are expecting in the nearest future? so so
Oh
so
my God.
so I'm just going to ask you this. What would you say to your younger self?
Mm. Wow. Wow. Hard question there. It's a hard question because honestly, looking back, I got most of things right done. In retrospect, my process has been very excellent. But I think that what I would tell my younger self is to bite the bullet, be more courageous.
Hmm.
Because growing up, I'm a very self-conscious person. I used to be a very self-conscious person. So you find me really trying to make sure everybody's happy with my decision.
Hmm.
Trying to, it's men pleasing kind of a thing.
Hmm.
So becoming an entrepreneur, panel beat that out of me. Becoming a public figure and getting people misunderstand you and accuse you of things, panel beat all that out of me because I've come to a point where I've heard things about me that even I'm wondering who are they. I'm looking for who they're talking about. Like really. So so those things have panel beat those fears out of me. That so at this point in my life, I do what I want to do from
Right.
a place of conviction and not from
Yes.
a place of does it sound right, does it feel right, because I know that the foundation of my behavior is an empathetic kind spirit.
Hmm.
So once I'm sure that I'm acting from a place of kindness and empathy, I'm not
Hmm.
afraid of the outcome because I don't expect everybody to understand the outcome. So that's one thing I'll tell my younger self. Because you know that inherently you have a home training and an upbringing that is upright, go all the way
Right.
and stop waiting
Right.
for people to validate or approve because that thing really held me back for a long time.
Because the
For a
truth of the matter is that that validation may not come from anybody.
lie, it will
Yes.
never come except
Yeah.
from you.
So just go on, believe in
Yes.
what you want to do. And I tell you, once you step out, I mean, you conquer the fear. Remember when
That's
I
it.
when I started the YouTube channel on the 5th of the first video I put out. I mean, I sent that message to you, and somebody's like, "What are you doing? Is this thing will not survive after the second week of
Oh
January?"
my
Do you
gosh.
understand?
I
But
know.
but I'm like, this person doesn't know that this is not a New Year resolution. This is
Yes.
something both of us have been working for 8 years. We've been like, this YouTube channel, you should have started 8 years ago.
You know,
So if you're waiting for validation, say if I put something out, people are going to clap. No. And I'm encouraging everyone on this call today. I talked about my very young sister here, Intimacy Masters. Like I said, I've known Intimacy Masters from Jessica from when she was young. And I know what she's doing today. People have told her things, and she's still on. And I want to encourage everyone here on this call, whether you're transitioning from one place in your life to the other. Remember everything we've talked about here today. Build a good support system. Make sure that you have people that truly care about you and who will tell you the truth at every point in time while you're also self-censoring. And remember the place of prayers. Okay, we can't do these things on our own. It's not because we're smart, it's not because we're eloquent, it's not because we have all the talents in the world. No, it's because it's been given to us to bless lives.
yeah.
And always remember your why. I think that's the biggest part for me. Because for me, once I can answer, Mercy, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Coach Sam, you know me. I won't listen to what anybody is saying. I'm biting that bullet and I'm going with it.
Jay,
And it's worked everywhere. You know, there's something, and I'm going to leave you with this. No matter where you go to, with these principles that we've talked about today, don't give yourself excuses. Don't give yourself excuses. I always talk about this. I lived in Kano. I lived in Gombe. I was born in Lagos. Everywhere, people have reasons why you cannot succeed in a place. But I believe because of the why, the purpose for our lives, wherever we are, we know that we have what it takes in us to succeed in that place.
Yeah.
So, Coach Sam, final word before you go. Final word. We have just made history today. First YouTube live. And look at my crew here. Thank you so much. Final word to all the people who have attended. That word for them.
Yeah, to everyone that is watching live and to everyone that will watch this later, transitions are the proof that you are growing. When you are transitioning, is proof that you are growing, because especially when they grow, no need to be bothered about transition.
Right.
So it is something you should celebrate, that this inconvenience and fear and stress of transition, it means that I'm actually moving away from where I was.
Yeah.
So just explore the strategies. It is not that all your transitions we work perfectly, but
no.
the fact that you are not where you were means that you are alive. I mean, you are not a tree, so move. Thank you, Dr. Mercy, for this.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much. And this would be on YouTube. Please follow Coach Sam on his Instagram. He's always dishing out nuggets daily. He's always throwing, we have like content. He's the king of everything, king of content creation, king of education, king of empowerment. Follow Coach Sam. And I just want to say thank you, my dear friend. Thank you for being part of this. I am grateful. God bless you.
Awesome.
God bless you. God bless you, sir. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.